Your world expands only as far as your thinking allows. Most people stay poor not because of lack of resources, but because of lack of vision. And worse, because of inherited limitations disguised as facts. See, poverty, real poverty, isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in excuses. It's measured in indecision. It's measured in the stories we tell ourselves about why success is for someone else. So today I want to have an honest conversation, not about what to think, but how to think. Because the secret isn't out there, it's in here. And once your mind makes the shift, your finances follow. I remember when I was broke, really broke, and working on a farm for a few dollars a day. But one day I made a decision. This is no longer acceptable. I set new standards. I told myself, from this day forward, I save at least 20% of every dollar I earn. It wasn't easy, but I stuck to it. I made it non-negotiable, the same way you pay your rent or your light bill. I made personal growth a standard 2 pages a day from a good book, learning something new, feeding my mind, because I realized wealth follows wisdom. Here's another thing the wealthy don't spend based on emotions. You ever notice how broke people reward themselves with debt? New gadgets, expensive clothes, dinners out, all to feel good for a moment, while their bank account suffers. But the wealthy set a standard. I don't spend emotionally, I invest intentionally. It's not deprivation, it's discipline. If you want to change your finances, raise your standards. Don't wish for wealth, demand better from yourself. Decide today, this is the new minimum I accept for my life. Wealth begins when your standards exceed your current circumstances. It's not magic, it's mindset. Set the standard, and life has no choice but to rise to meet you. One of the most common reasons people stay broke isn't because they don't earn enough, it's because they don't have a plan for the money they do earn. You see, most folks treat money like something that happens to them instead of something they command. They work hard, the paycheck arrives, and within a few days it's gone spent emotionally, spent impulsively, often spent trying to fill gaps that discipline could have solved long ago. Wealthy people don't live that way. They understand that money is a tool, a resource, and like any tool, it works best under direction. They give every dollar a job before it arrives. They don't wake up wondering where their paycheck went. They already know because they told it where to go. I learned this lesson the hard way. Early in my life, I earned money, and I spent money. That was the rhythm. Paycheck comes in, life happens, money disappears. And I'd be standing there at the end of the month wondering how I was broke again. But I realized wealth doesn't visit people who live by accident. It shows up for those who live by design. So here's how you change it. Before the month begins, you sit down, just you, a notebook, and your financial reality. You create a simple plan. You tell your money, this portion goes to saving. This portion goes to investing. This portion goes to learning, because wisdom compounds faster than dollars ever will. And yes, some goes to living, to enjoying, to the things that make life rich, but even that is planned, intentional, within boundaries you set. If you skip this step, money slips through your fingers like water. But when you plan it, money starts working for you even in small amounts. Don't wait until you make more to build a plan. You build the plan now, so when more arrives, it has a place to grow, not a place to disappear. Wealth is not an accident. It's built by people who act like the CEO of their finances, not a bystander. Direct your money or you'll always be wondering where it went. It's one of the most expensive lessons in life, failing with money and refusing to learn from it. Most people experience a financial setback, a bad investment, impulsive spending, debt piling up, and instead of pausing to examine what happened, they either run from the discomfort or, even worse, repeat the same mistake. They carry the same habits, the same blind spots, right into the next paycheck, the next opportunity, the next loss. But the wealthy, the ones who build something lasting, they see financial failure differently. They don't hide from it. They study it. They squeeze the lesson out of every money mistake because they understand failure isn't final, it's feedback. Every financial stumble, every dollar lost is tuition paid for a class in wisdom, and if you skip the lesson, you've wasted both the money and the opportunity to grow. I remember making mistakes with money early on deals that went sideways, times when I spent more than I earned, moments when ego overruled common sense. But eventually I realized that pain is expensive, but ignorance is even costlier. So I started keeping what I call a money mistake journal. It wasn't complicated, but it changed everything. And every time I made a poor financial decision, I wrote it down. What exactly happened? Why did it happen? What was I thinking or not thinking? Most importantly, what can I do differently next time? It was uncomfortable, I'll admit that. But discomfort is the price of growth. You wouldn't lift weights expecting to stay comfortable. The same applies to building wealth. Financial muscle grows through resistance, through analyzing mistakes, understanding your emotions, your blind spots, your patterns. Over time, that journal became a vault of wisdom. I could flip back through it and avoid repeating the same errors. I learned that discipline beats emotion, that rushing beats reason, that tracking beats guessing. I turned my past failures into present strategies, and those strategies compounded into real wealth. You can't avoid every financial mistake, but you can guarantee you never waste one. Write it down. Study it. Let every dollar lost become a lesson gained. Wealth belongs to those who learn, not those who ignore. I've seen it happen time and time again. You ask someone how much they earned last month, maybe they know. You ask them how much they spent, they guess. You ask how much they saved, they shrug. And then they wonder why wealth feels out of reach. But wealth isn't built in the dark, it's built in the light of clarity. The wealthy, they track everything. Not because they're obsessed with numbers, but because they're obsessed with growth. You can't grow what you don't measure. It's impossible. The numbers tell the story where your money's going, what habits are costing you, where leaks are draining your future. And once you know, you can change. I learned this lesson early on. I used to be the guy who said, I'll save whatever's left at the end of the month. You know how much was left? Nothing. Because money without direction gets spent. So I started tracking every dollar, first with pen and paper simple columns, income, expenses, savings, investments. Later I used tools and apps. But the method doesn't matter, the discipline does. For 30 days, track every dollar, everything. Coffee, groceries, subscriptions, little things, big things, it all counts. What you'll notice isn't just the numbers, it's your awareness sharpening. You'll catch yourself before spending emotionally. You'll start noticing patterns, wasteful spending, forgotten subscriptions, areas you can optimize, and then something shifts. You stop guessing, you start deciding, you stop wondering where your money went and start telling it where to go. That's how control is built. And control is the foundation of wealth. You don't build wealth by accident. You build it by knowing your numbers, owning your decisions, and directing your resources with clarity. Ignorance costs more than accountability ever will. It's easy to stay busy these days, isn't it? The world will keep you occupied from sunup to sundown, endless notifications, messages, distractions, entertainment. But the real tragedy is that most people confuse activity with productivity. They spend hours scrolling through their phones, binge-watching shows, stuck in conversations that add no value. And then they wonder why success never seems to find them. They'll say they're exhausted, overwhelmed, too busy, yet their bank account, their skills, their opportunities stay the same. The wealthy, they play a different game. They understand that time is capital, just like money. But unlike money, once time is spent, you can't earn it back. So they calculate the value of their hour. Let me ask you, have you ever stopped to do that? Have you ever asked yourself, what is 1 hour of my life worth? Not in theory, but in hard numbers. Let's say your goal is to earn $100,000 a year. Break that down. It's roughly $50 an hour based on a typical work schedule. Now, every time you waste an hour, imagine you're lighting a $50 bill on fire. Would you still waste it, gossiping, scrolling, binging, mindlessly consuming? Probably not. But that's what most people do. They spend time like it's free, when in truth, it's the most expensive thing they own. I used to fall into that trap too. Endless small tasks, distractions disguised as productivity. But when I started auditing my week, everything changed. I wrote down how I spent every hour for 7 days. You know what I found? There were hours I thought I was busy, but I wasn't building, I wasn't creating, I wasn't learning. I was consuming information, entertainment, opinions, all of it draining my time, none of it compounding my wealth. So here's the challenge. This week, replace just 1 hour of consumption with creation. Build something, sell something, learn a skill, have a conversation that opens doors. 1 hour. That's how momentum starts. Remember, the wealthy don't count the hours they fill, they count the results they create. If you want to buy back your freedom, you start by buying back your hours. It's been said that the human mind works best with clear instructions. But most people walk through life as if they're wandering through a fog, hoping, wishing, drifting, yet never truly deciding. They say they want more money, more freedom, a better life, but ask them for specifics and they freeze. It's like getting in a car, turning on the ignition, and refusing to enter the destination into the GPS, and then being surprised when you end up lost, frustrated, or worse, exactly where you started. The wealthy don't operate that way. They don't build their future by accident. They understand that clarity is power. Clarity gives birth to focused action, and focused action compounds into wealth. But that clarity doesn't arrive by chance. It's created intentionally, often on paper. When I first started out, I was broke. Not just financially, but mentally. I was drifting, doing just enough to survive, but never enough to change my circumstances. And then someone challenged me. If I handed you $1 million today, what would you do with it? I had no answer. That was the problem. I didn't have a vision. I didn't have direction. I only had vague desires and scattered effort. So I sat down and wrote my first vision statement, not for the next 20 years, just for 1 year. I asked myself, what do I want my income to be 12 months from now? How much do I want saved? Where do I want my investments to stand? What skills will I have improved? It wasn't perfect, but it was specific. Suddenly the fog lifted. My actions aligned with my vision. Opportunities showed up, progress accelerated. Most people never do this exercise, yet it takes less than an hour. Sit down, no distractions, and think on paper. Be detailed. Be precise. Write your income target. Define your savings goal. List the investments you'll make, even if you're starting small. Describe your future in full color. Because when your mind can see it, your actions can chase it. And when action chases vision with discipline, wealth follows. The clearer the picture, the faster your reality changes. Most people stay poor not because they're incapable, but because they avoid the very knowledge that could liberate them. You see, money isn't magic. It's not reserved for a select few who were born with some secret advantage. Money follows understanding. Money follows education. Yet time and again, I meet good people, hardworking, driven, talented, who stay stuck simply because they've convinced themselves that money is too complicated to figure out. They say things like, I'm not good with numbers, or finance isn't for people like me, or that's too overwhelming. But let me tell you something I've learned. The wealthy weren't born knowing how to multiply their income, manage investments, or grow businesses. They learned it. Step by step, book by book, question by question, and more importantly, they never stopped learning. You can trace poverty back to a pattern, avoidance. Avoiding the books, avoiding the conversations, avoiding the hard questions about money. But here's the truth. You will never outperform your financial education. Your income will only grow to the level of your understanding. The moment you stop learning, your earning potential locks itself in place. I used to think wealth was reserved for people with connections or luck. But when I picked up my first personal finance book, everything shifted. Suddenly I realized wealth is structured, it's predictable. It follows principles, not chance, and those principles are written down in books, in courses, in the minds of mentors, but only for those bold enough to seek them out. So here's the challenge. This month, read one book on money. It could be on budgeting, investing, building a side income. Doesn't matter where you start, just start. The key is momentum. One book becomes two books become 10. With every page, fear shrinks, confidence grows, complexity simplifies. Suddenly you're making decisions with clarity, saving smarter, spending intentionally, seeing opportunities others miss. And over time, your financial reality bends to match your new mindset. Remember, poverty begins where learning ends. If you want to break free, the first investment isn't in stocks or real estate, it's in your financial education. It's an interesting thing about human nature. Most people want success, but they want comfort more. They want wealth, but they want instant gratification even more. And that's why year after year, many stay stuck in the same financial place, wondering why their circumstances never change. Let me tell you, wealth doesn't begin with income, it begins with discipline. It begins with flipping the script on how you handle money, specifically how you save. Most people spend first and save last if they save at all. They tell themselves, once I pay the bills, once I enjoy life, once I buy this or that, if there's anything left over, I'll save. But let me ask you, have you ever noticed? There's never anything left over. Lifestyle expands to consume every dollar because we let it. It's human nature to reward ourselves first. But if you keep living that way, you stay trapped in what I call the broke cycle, working harder, earning more, but never keeping any of it. The wealthy do the opposite. They've trained themselves to reverse that order. Saving isn't an afterthought. It's the first priority. They treat saving like a bill, non-negotiable, automatic, consistent. You see, discipline isn't about depriving yourself. It's about building a system that removes emotion from the equation. Because if you rely on willpower to save, your lifestyle desires will always win. But if you automate it, set up an automatic transfer where 10%, 15%, maybe 20% of every paycheck goes into savings or investments before you ever see it, now you've removed the temptation. When I was young, someone taught me this principle. Don't wait to save what's left after spending, spend what's left after saving. That one shift changed everything. Even when I was broke, I saved a little. A few dollars here, a few dollars there. Wasn't much, but it was the habit, the system, the discipline being built. Over time, those small amounts compounded, and once your savings grow, your confidence grows. You stop operating from scarcity, and you start thinking like an investor, like someone building a future. So, if you want to break free from financial frustration, stop making saving optional. Make it automatic. Make it sacred. Because the habit of paying yourself first is the foundation of every wealthy person's story. Most people stay stuck financially because they never learn one of the most basic, yet most powerful distinctions when it comes to money. The difference between assets and liabilities. Now, this isn't complicated, but you'd be amazed how many adults spend their entire lives buying liabilities, thinking they're building wealth, only to wake up years later wondering why they're still broke. Let me break it down simply. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket consistently, predictably, over time. A liability? It takes money out of your pocket. That's the definition. It's not about how shiny it is, how impressive it looks, or what your friends think about it. If it drains your bank account, it's a liability. If it feeds your bank account, it's an asset. But here's where most people get trapped. They confuse status with wealth. They buy cars that lose value the moment they drive them off the lot. They collect clothes, gadgets, and entertainment systems, all exciting for a moment, but none of them produce a return. You see, they're buying expenses disguised as success symbols. And the more they buy, the more their bank account leaks. It's like filling a bucket full of holes. No matter how hard you work or how much you earn, it disappears. The wealthy, they see the world differently. They buy income, not expenses. They prioritize assets, things like rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, businesses, intellectual property, anything that produces cash flow or grows in value over time. They delay the flashy purchases, building a foundation of income-producing assets first. And here's the best part. Once the assets grow large enough, they fund the lifestyle. You want the nice car, the trips, the upgrades? Let your assets pay for it, not your labor. I remember when I learned this lesson. I stopped looking at price tags and started asking one question. Does this purchase make me money, or does it cost me money? It changed everything. Suddenly, I was no longer chasing temporary pleasure. I was building permanent wealth. And over time, the assets compounded, creating financial breathing room, choices, freedom. If you want to break free from financial frustration, master this. Spend your life collecting assets, not liabilities. Because income buys comfort, but assets buy freedom, and freedom is where real wealth lives. It's a curious thing, but one of the greatest reasons people stay stuck financially is they don't respect small beginnings. They overlook the first steps, the small habits, the tiny wins, because they're so busy waiting for something big to happen. They want the big paycheck, the overnight breakthrough, the dramatic success story. But let me tell you, that mindset keeps you broke, because in the real world, wealth doesn't show up all at once. It sneaks in through the back door, disguised as small, steady, almost invisible progress. See, most people dismiss the small. They think, why bother saving $5? It's nothing. Or, I only made a tiny profit that doesn't count. They look at small earnings, small habits, and small beginnings like they're beneath them. And here's the tragedy. That thinking is exactly what keeps their bank account empty and their future limited. The wealthy, they live by a different philosophy. They treat the first $10 like it matters, because it does. They know that wealth is never built by chance, it's built by habit. And habits begin with small, disciplined steps. That first $10 saved, that's proof you can delay gratification. That first tiny sale, that's proof your skills can produce value. The small beginning isn't insignificant. It's the seed of every forest, the spark of every fire, the foundation of every empire. When I was young, I used to believe that success would arrive in one grand moment, one lucky break, one perfect opportunity. But life taught me differently. Success isn't built in big moments, it's hidden in daily disciplines. When I saved my first few dollars, when I read my first book, when I made my first small investment, I didn't feel rich, but I was planting seeds. And those seeds compounded not overnight, but over years. Let me ask you, how do you build a mountain? One handful of dirt at a time. How do you build wealth? One disciplined decision at a time. But only if you respect the small. Because if you dismiss the small, you'll never qualify for the big. So, if you've been waiting for the big breakthrough, stop waiting. Start small. Respect every dollar, every lesson, every habit. Because those small beginnings, that's where the real wealth story begins. One of the most dangerous traps that keeps people poor is victim thinking. It's easy to fall into, and it's comfortable at first. Blaming the economy, blaming parents, blaming the government, blaming the boss, it gives you a convenient reason to stand still. It gives you an excuse not to change. But here's the truth. The moment you choose to live in blame, you surrender your power. You hand over the keys to your future, and you say, I'm not driving. And if you're not driving, where are you really going? You see, those who stay poor hold tightly to this mindset. They walk around carrying invisible signs that say, it's not my fault. They list all the reasons why they can't succeed, their upbringing, their city, their age, their education. But the truth is, every day you spend blaming is a day you're not building. Blame feels good for a moment, but it steals years from your life. The wealthy don't think this way. They take full ownership. Not because life is always fair to them, it's not. Not because they didn't have setbacks, they did. But because they understand that the minute you say, even if this isn't my fault, it is my responsibility, you get your power back. When you take responsibility, you take control. And that control is what changes your financial direction. I remember a time when I was frustrated with my results. I wanted to blame everything outside of me, my circumstances, my opportunities, even the timing. But I realized that as long as I blamed, I was waiting for something else to change before I could move forward. I was waiting for the economy to improve. I was waiting for someone else to open a door. I was waiting for life to get easier. And that's the game most people play. They wait. But what changed everything for me was this. I stopped waiting. I stopped blaming. I took ownership. I said, if it's to be, it's up to me. Even if it wasn't my fault, it was my responsibility. And from that moment, everything began to shift. So, here's the real question. Are you carrying blame like a shield, or are you ready to take the wheel? Because once you stop blaming and start building, that's when your wealth story truly begins. One of the most costly illusions people fall for is the belief that wealth comes without sacrifice. It's tempting, isn't it? The lifestyle, the vacations, the freedom, all without the struggle, without the grind, without the discipline. But let me tell you, that version of success doesn't exist. You cannot skip the season of sacrifice and expect to harvest the rewards of wealth. It's like wanting the fruit without planting the tree, wanting the view from the mountaintop without making the climb. It doesn't work that way. I've met so many people over the years who want the symbols of wealth, the car, the house, the freedom, but they refuse the price. They want the applause without the hours of quiet work. They want the success story without the chapters of sacrifice. But every wealthy person I've ever known has paid the price up front. They've embraced the uncomfortable season where they said no to distractions, no to temporary pleasures, no to the easy path, because they understood that discipline now creates freedom later. The struggle for most people is they believe shortcuts exist. They're constantly searching for the fast track, the secret formula that skips the boring parts. But wealth is never built on shortcuts. It's built on principles. It's built on habits, consistency, and a willingness to delay gratification. I remember when I first started setting aside money, it wasn't exciting. While my friends spent every dollar on entertainment or upgrades, I was saving. I was learning. I was investing in books, mentors, skills, not flashy things. And I'll be honest, it felt like a sacrifice at the time. But that short season of saying no became the foundation for a lifetime of saying yes to opportunities, to freedom, to options most people never get. The truth is, the road to wealth starts with a simple but powerful decision: to embrace the sacrifice season, to do the work when no one's watching, to invest in your mind when others waste their time, to skip the short-term pleasures so you can build long-term peace. So the question is, are you ready to say no now so you can say yes later? Because until you make peace with sacrifice, you'll always stay stuck wishing while others are building. One of the greatest tragedies I see in life is people waiting for permission, waiting for the stars to align, waiting for someone to validate their dreams before they begin. And I can tell you that waiting keeps more people poor, stagnant, and frustrated than almost anything else. They convince themselves that when the timing is perfect, when the money's in place, when the support shows up, then they'll take action. But the wealthy know a secret. There is no perfect time. The only permission you'll ever need is your own. I've been there myself. Early in my journey, I thought success required approval from mentors, from my environment, from circumstances lining up neatly. But let me tell you, life rarely hands you that kind of clarity wrapped in a bow. More often than not, you have to step forward uncertain, unprepared, maybe even afraid. And in that motion, that messy, imperfect motion, clarity appears, opportunities show up, doors open, but none of it happens if you stand still waiting. The real root of this hesitation is fear. Fear of failing, fear of looking foolish, fear of being judged. But here's the irony. Staying stuck guarantees failure. Waiting keeps you broke. Hesitating keeps you behind. The wealthy understand that wealth respects motion, not hesitation. Small steps compound. Small beginnings, repeated consistently, become unstoppable momentum. Think about the people you admire, the ones with freedom, with options, with financial peace. They weren't handed a permission slip to begin. They gave themselves permission. They started reading when others waited for the right book. They started saving when others waited for the raise. They started building when others waited for support. The most dangerous words in personal growth are someday and when. Someday I'll save. When I have time, I'll invest. But someday never comes for most, and when never arrives. So here's the challenge. Give yourself permission today. Begin small. Open a savings account with $10. Read a chapter tonight. Make one uncomfortable phone call. Don't wait for perfect. Just begin. Because wealth rewards movement, not hesitation.